What I'd like to do is introduce Kim, and I'm going to read her bio as it is in our newsletter. So, Kim Kaise, did I get that right?
You got it. You
All
got
right.
it.
Kim Kaise, principal of Leap Business Coaching, is a professional business coach who helps small business owners 2 to 3 times their revenue in record time. Her clients seek her out when they're at the peak of frustration in their businesses, often ready to throw in the towel. Through their work together, they quickly focus on simple strategies to get their businesses back on track so that they double or triple their revenue while falling back in love with their business. Kim's corporate background includes creating breakthrough sales results, which melts perfectly with her coaching career. As VP of Sales, Kim led sales and sales support teams to grow a company from 14 million to 40 million in 4 years' time. Kim also co-owns an ice cream company with her husband, Chef Steve, where she serves as the brand manager and chief tasting officer. And unfortunately for us, they are in Texas. So I keep reading about these amazing ice cream flavors and the reactions to them. And here we are in Florida. By the time you would ship it to us, it wouldn't be any good. So,
Yeah, we
Kim,
haven't quite figured the shipping out yet, but we will sometime soon.
good. It's really a pleasure to welcome you today. I know Kim through a mastery program that I'm part of, and I have seen and heard about some of her work and the track record that she has of some really extraordinary success with her clients. So let me just back up and let's start at square one. When somebody comes to you
Yeah.
and they say, I'm just fed up with my business, or I'm not earning the kind of money I want to earn, or I feel stuck or burned out, where do you start?
Mm. Well, what I see about when people are so, kind of overwhelmed and burned out with their business, people come to me typically when they've almost been, like I used to say, kind of overly successful. They start, I work with small businesses. So usually in revenue wise, they're somewhere under 1 million and they're trying to break into like the 7 figures, and they're people who have some sort of professional service, usually architecture, engineering, CPAs, commercial real estate firms, that sort of thing. And what I really see, that instead of throwing in the towel, a lot of times there's really what I'm going to say is an energetic adjustment that needs to be made. Okay, now here's what I mean by that. Um, most of these people with these small firms, like again, they're 5 to 10 employees. The owner has started this firm because they're really good at what they do, right? They're a great commercial real estate agent. They're an incredible engineer. They're amazing with design and architecture. And they start and then they add some people. But what needs to happen for them to grow beyond that, whatever, 5, 10 people, that $1 million in revenue, is really different than what is needed to start a firm. Completely different skill set, right? But what they do instead, they try to keep doing more and more, and that's not what's needed. And what I almost always find is the person basically hasn't stepped into fully owning their business.
Okay.
That's that energetic adjustment I'm talking about. Like they're really good at the doing the stuff,
Right.
the tasks, but they haven't stepped leadership wise into the ownership of owning what they do and who they impact and the difference they make. And that's, I think, I would say 99% of the time, that's one of the biggest pieces that, yeah, I have a great business background. I can teach them business strategies, but if we don't get, if I see a business owner who's not really owning what they do, they're not impactful with leadership and inside their own firm. Like if we can't fix that piece, the strategies and tactics and processes don't really, it's incremental, the change it makes. But on top of that energetic shift, that's how I get results so fast.
That's really interesting to me. Now, in this group, I don't think, at least anybody present today has a bunch of employees, or is it the six-figure mark, seven-figure mark or more. But it seems to me that what you're saying would also apply to coaches and small businesses. You think?
It does. It completely does. In fact, I've been working with the group I was telling you about for the last 10 years, but in the last year or two, I've had a lot of coaches coming to me. I've had a lot of people transitioning from corporate into sort of more their soul work, which is what I call it. A lot of coaches have watched what I'm doing. They want to see. And so it's the same shift. I have a Facebook group where we talk about this sort of thing, and I've just started a membership that's, again, for people who maybe aren't as far along in the journey. But it's the same shift. It's the shift that I had to go through as well. Like, I know it well. I don't really teach things from a pulpit. I teach the things that I have, been on the ground, really walking wounded, and then embodying something different for myself. That
Right.
ownership was key. And that alone for me, last year was a pivotal year for me. I over doubled my own revenue last year in 2020, which shouldn't have been the case, but it was me completely stepping into my gifts.
Wow. That's impressive. So, I know that I know that last week you did a series of free classes.
Yes.
And sometimes we call them a lab, or, a master class, or whatever you want to call it. But I'm very curious, what kinds of questions, first of all, what was it called? And secondly, what kinds of questions did people ask you the most?
Oh gosh. So it was called the Flow and Freedom Formula. Okay. And it was all about, it was specifically for people who were either, in the earlier stages. This wasn't for the ideal client that I was talking about a few minutes ago. This was really for people who are doing some of their kind of soul work, the work they feel like they're meant to do here, or they were trying to do it, mm-hmm. and not getting as much traction as they wanted. And so I just, as I am sometimes, feel called to go wow, I've learned a lot about that topic. And I see a lot of people asking me, well, how did you get from kind of struggling and sort of client to client to where it's really working? It's a system now. And so I thought about that, and that's how I designed that 3-day flow and freedom formula. And inevitably, I get a lot of questions about the strategic piece, how to. People like to ask how to questions to coaches, yeah. Right? That's what they always want to ask, how to. And rarely is that what they need. That's not what they need the answer to usually. It's usually a deeper answer. And ultimately, so I got a lot of how-to questions. Like one question I got, which a lot of people have, they probably have this even for you all as well, is I had people who are still sort of not quite in the transition phase. They're still kind of doing their old job. They really want to do something new, some sort of, helping profession like we are. And they're like, but how do I make that transition? Who's going to listen to me with I don't have any results yet. I don't have any experience yet. And I told them what I told one of the people in my business growth mentorship group, which is my group program that's for people who are kind of already making money and wanting the next level. I have in that business growth mentorship group a guy who's 21 years old, and he's a commercial real estate broker.
Oh,
and he's phenomenal. He's the coolest guy. He's just, at 21, right, getting some real input. And he had that question. He's like, well, I'm doing some stuff right because I'm making a bit of money, but who's going to really listen to me? I'm talking to people that are 40, 50, 60 years old. And what I said to him is what I said to the group last week, which is, for him, he had purchased a commercial real estate property. He had purchased a multifamily property when he was 19. Okay, that's kind of impressive, right?
Yeah.
So he knew something about commercial real estate transactions more than 99.9% of us.
Right.
right? And
Right.
that's really, to me, most of us, we just have to be a step ahead. I mean, great if we're 5 or 10 steps ahead of the person, but really it's one step ahead. And for someone who we're not ahead of, like they're ahead of us, we're not their person anyway, right? So we don't have to worry about, because there are always going to be people much further along on the path, and then there are going to be people who are not. And that really clarified for the woman who asked that, and for the others who were sort of thinking it but didn't have the guts to ask, is like this: we're naturally interested in our soul work, right? In the work we're meant to do. We're naturally interested in it. All of us are. We've learned a lot about it. We study it. We get insights about it, right? So we're just going to know more than most people about it. We're going to be able to help way more than we even think we can, And so but that holds people back when they think, well, who's going to listen to me? All right. Well, who am I to say whatever? Who am I to be the expert on this, right? Like these are all just human things that go through our heads. And I really try to clarify that for the people.
Yeah, when I have mentored people to become coaches, and help them really up their coaching skills, one of the first things I always teach is, and it sounds to me like you're saying this in a way, um, you need to be saying what's obvious to you, because it's probably not obvious to the other person. You think, oh, how could they
Yes.
not know that? Well, guess what? They probably don't.
Right.
And that's probably true for everyone in this group listening today. You all know things that are obvious to you that you don't realize are not obvious to other people. And there's your value as a coach, saying
Yes.
what you know.
Completely. Absolutely. Like I think that's where our biggest gifts are those things that just come naturally to us that we don't even take stock of it. It's so natural. Like it's so we have to really, I think, stop and reflect on those things where people go like, wait, what did you say? That was really big. Oh, was it? That's just the water we swim in, right? Because we've
Right.
pointed ourselves in a direction.
So when you talk about finding flow, freedom and flow, can you say a little bit more about what that means? And how do you work with someone to achieve that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand inhabiting your business and, really embodying who you are and becoming your own leader. Even if you're a solo entrepreneur, you're
Yeah.
still a leader of your business. So
Yeah.
what about finding freedom and flow?
Yeah. Well, part of it is it's really what you just said. It's embodying that leadership even when it's a company of one, right? Like it's not, we don't become the leader when we have more people. It's we become the leader when it's just us, and then the people tend to gravitate towards that. When I taught the flow and freedom formula last week, the three things I was really aiming people towards was having some sort of vision, right? I know we're all coaches here, so we believe in that, but orienting ourselves towards a direction of what we really ultimately want
Right?
is part of it, because we're just more likely to get to a destination that's identified than if we don't identify it. Like that's just, just
Right.
sort of normal human stuff. And then I talked about visibility, because in the world we're in now, I'd never sold anything online before
I was going
June
to
of
ask about
last
that.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I say visibility, we need to be visible in our communities, but the pandemic made that quite a bit harder than it needed to be. So I
Yeah.
talked a lot about visibility both online and offline. And that's really more a function of, again, not so much what to do, but how really it was all about our relationship to fear, because most people have a real fear of showing up fully as themselves, saying, here I am, being visible. And we talked, really everyone in there started to get a completely different relationship to their fear.
Mhm.
And so that was a big piece with the visibility. And then the last piece of it was around, the value that we bring, not the value of us as individuals, because that's infinite, but really the value we're bringing to the people we want to bring it to.
Mhm.
Right. And so if we really kind of nail those three areas, the vision, the visibility, and the value, we start to create that freedom and flow. And the biggest thing that people walked away with, it was fascinating, because I'm always pointing at, whether I'm working with the other business owners that I told you about first, or if I'm working with people who are not as quite as far along in the journey, it's all about like radical self-expression, like being more who we are, because that's why we came here, you know. And what they all said was they just walked away with permission to be themselves and permission to do their business however they wanted to do it.
Mhm.
Like there are certain elements that we all need, like again, like visibility is one of them. We have to have some element of visibility. How we do it individually, it wants to be in a way that's aligned to each of us, and that's going to look different to each person.
Right.
Right. So that's it's really, when I work with people, it's fleshing out their vision. It's helping them find what is aligned for visibility, right? Having a different relationship with fear, and then finding the ways that are aligned to be visible, and then really working through what value they bring and being able to articulate that, because that's just again, a hard thing for us to articulate, because most of us were not like, not to try to speak for everyone, but most of us were taught to sort of, dim our lights, not
Especially
shine them
women.
brightly, right? That's
Especially
the
women.
conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so so that's overall the process that I do. There's a lot in there, of course, but yeah.
Wow. So two things. First of all, please, everybody, feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in if you have a comment, or you want to ask him a question, or we'd like it to be as interactive as possible. So please, it's a conversation. Do jump in if you feel like it. Even just to make a comment, you don't even have to have a question. But I'm very curious. You mentioned something I was going to ask you about, Kim, which is the online factor. Now, I know a lot of people who pre-pandemic basically had kind of a website, maybe did a little bit online, but weren't active online. And I'm one of those people. In our program, I was a Facebook reader, but I don't think if I put 3 posts up from the time I joined Facebook years ago, it was probably a lot. I was a reader.
Yeah.
And here I am posting and doing videos and doing all this stuff and getting presence online. But it took a while to get my mind in that mindset. How do you coach people or talk about people to get more visibility and to get online without feeling overwhelmed, or like it's going to cost a fortune, or it's exhausting, or it's not me? How do you deal with that mindset?
Yeah. It's really two things. It's starting to see it's again getting into a different relationship with fear. That's part, because there's an element of, when people are sort of resisting it, there are very few people I've ever come across that fear wasn't in that equation.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was sharing, I'm going to bring up real quick what I shared with everybody, my simple lesson on fear, which was, I'm just scrolling. Hang on one second. I had to get them into a different relationship with fear, because I mean, as I think probably everybody on here knows, but I had to remind everybody about this, is like, unless we're facing actual danger, like a bear in the woods sort of thing, okay, but
Right.
most of us aren't facing that day to day, right?
Okay.
But when we get fearful about being online or whatever that visibility piece is, it feels like there's a bear in the woods chasing me. But unless we're facing actual danger, the fear isn't really a signal of anything being wrong. Okay. To me, fear is just a signal that we're overthinking what we're thinking about. And in the context of visibility, fear is just telling us, oh, you're doing something new and different. Brain is trying to keep us safe, right? But it's not really, we're not facing a bear in the woods. There's no actual danger. So
very interesting. So what you're doing is reframing the message that the fear is telling us.
yes, because as far as I can tell, it's true. Like, again, If we were all out in the woods, I wouldn't be teaching that lesson, right?
Right.
Because we could come across something. But again, day in, day out, most of us are not facing, when we're thinking about being visible, we're not in any actual danger, but the body and the brain are designed to think fear and then protect us, right? Like hunker down, our body changes, our heart beats, your hands sweat, that sort of thing. And so what I was trying to really show people is like, well, that's a typical fear response. When you're sitting at your desk conjuring up a post, there's really not danger. And when you hit the post, but there's really no danger. And most people will say, like, then you go beyond that. And the worst that happens is like, someone says something rude online or whatever, right? Like, it's not really that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I've learned that about flame wars that I've observed in groups that I've been in online where, because people are not looking each other in the eye and in the same room
Right.
physically.
Yeah, people get
We
real
think
brave.
it's okay to just, let it fly and attack.
Yeah.
And I've learned not to take those seriously.
Right.
Just in Gestalt, when I was trained years ago, they used to say, Fritz Perls used to say that it doesn't matter if you got an angry reaction from your client. There's life there. There's no wrong reaction. Just work with what is. It's not
Right.
like you screwed up as a therapist by making them
Right.
mad. Good, go for it. So
Yeah.
to me, what you're saying sounds the same. Does anybody in the group have a reaction to what she's saying about reframing fear and working with it? And what's stopping you all from doing more in your businesses? Or is it just that you don't want more? Anybody? Deb?
So I remember being in one of our coaches' meetings many
Just
moons
tell,
ago.
if you don't mind, just tell Kim what you do, Deb.
Oh, yeah.
I coach specialty food companies. So I'm sales and marketing consultant. I just had my 20th anniversary, May 1st. And I've been in the industry, I don't know, 40 years, call it. So I was at one of the meetings many, many moons ago before anybody here was part of the group. And I said to someone, I'm fearless, and it blew her away. Okay, because like to your point, Kim, what's the worst that can happen? We're not doing brain surgery here, right? Can always delete your post if you don't like it after, or the reaction or whatever. So that's just my comment about fear. And then yeah, I studied the Enneagram, and there's so many people that operate from a position of fear in our society that I had to look it up, and it's better than 60%. The majority of people, just their operating system is fear. Having said both those things, can I pivot the conversation? Because I have a question.
Sure.
And I'm listening to you, and I'm not sure if I understand that you have a step-by-step process, or you're just trying to meet the individual where they are. Could you help me with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I work with people one-to-one, I am following loosely the process I talked about, but I'm highly intuitive. In human design terms, I have lots on the sensing and knowing circuit. And so I'm really meeting the person where they are. And I just have this gift that I have embraced after a long time of really seeing the person in their business and seeing exactly the thing that needs to shift to get the exponential result. Like, I've done that forever. I didn't own it for a long time, but now I do.
So what do you do with a person who's really analytical? Do you resonate with that person?
Probably not my client, actually. And it took me a while to learn that if somebody's looking for step-by-step and logic, like that's probably like what I'm doing in my screening process with people as I'm talking to people who are potential one-on-ones, there has to be a high degree of trust in the intuitive on the behalf of that person, or it just doesn't work. Like I took a client who wanted the step-by-step, wanted everything to be logical last year. And I took it against my better judgment, but I thought, oh, I can get in there. And it didn't work. Right. And it was just a great lesson. And like, oh no, I can't take those kind of clients. But the ones that really they're more in touch with maybe a more of the invisible side of life. They're maybe a little more spiritual, or they're really interested in personal development, and they trust intuition, or they at least know there's something there for them. Those are magic for me. So, but I'm not afraid to turn people away, for sure.
I may be, correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, but my understanding of you and your work, having heard you and seen you and all that, is that yes, you're highly intuitive, but you also have very clear, grounded, proven how-tos and steps.
Yeah.
Once you have that intuitive connection.
Yes.
When you say you know what needs to be done, you also know how to guide people in a systematic way.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. And even in, I mentioned, like, so then in the group work that I do, like this membership and the mentorship group, I have 2 different groups. That more follows a system, right?
Mhm.
I'm talking to them about vision, visibility, value, and kind of in that order. And I also trust that if my sense of the group is we need to take a left turn when we were going to take a right, I will absolutely do that. I trust myself to do that. So it's really this combination. But again, for me, it's having people get the grounding of, we need more of them, not less. We need, in lieu of the strategies, and then we'll get to the strategies. We will do that because I do understand that part, having been a business person for a long time before I'm a coaching business person, you know?
So it sounds to me like you get people in alignment first and then start to build strategies and implementation
Right.
based on that new alignment.
Yes, correct. That's it. And the strategies can be, again, if I'm working with someone one-to-one, the strategies are really very much tailored. You know, we really dig into how to tailor those so that they stay in alignment, right? Because none of us want to, like, what I burn out so many times is because people are out of alignment. They are working hard, but most of us, when we're in alignment, we can actually work to great lengths depending on who we are. But when it's out of alignment, it will burn us out.
Right.
Yeah. So the alignment piece is huge, and that's where it's just always, again, more of you, not less.
Takes up a lot of energy when you feel more aligned.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Anybody else?
Or we just avoid it, right? Like there's parts that we like to do and there's parts that we should do.
Yeah.
And we don't should.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard when we avoid things, right? Because then there's all the chatter, well, I should be doing this. And then that's exhausting too.
But I think what I'm hearing you say is that if you have a business person who's gotten to a certain point and they're not letting go of certain things, you help them to identify what they excel at and to keep doing those things and then to hire out the rest.
Yeah, that's absolutely part of the process. Yeah. Absolutely part of the process. Because again, taking the example of like the engineer or the commercial real estate agent, like they're really good at, like in the commercial real estate agent, they're really good at putting transactions together. But the future of scaling the company, it is about transactions, but it's also empowering other people and training other people to do the same. Otherwise you just grow to a glass ceiling and you can't get past it because you're not trusting or enabling people to do what they need to do to help you grow it. And so often, like one of my clients worked with him one-to-one last year, and he came to me in April after we'd done an intensive in January. And he said, I think this is the year I want to hit 2.4 million. And I'm like, okay, well, where have you been lately? And he said, well, I've been stuck at 600,000 for 4 years. And I said, you read the newspapers, right? He said, yep. He said, do you think you can help me? I said, yep. Because I saw, right? I knew exactly what the switch was we needed to flip. He actually ended up doing 3 million last year.
Oh,
In 7 months. He didn't even need the whole year, by the way. He did it in 7 months. And then he brought me in to work with his team this year. It was a natural transition because now we're working. I'm continuing to work with him because he really needs to hire some people, get some other process in place. But I'm also working with the brokers, again, so that they can come up with their unique process that's aligned for them, because we're not going to build the company on burnout,
yeah.
So
So taking a slight left turn here.
Yeah.
In the past, I've done a lot of workshops for psychotherapists, because I am one, on coaching as either an additional, an alternative career entirely from therapy to escape the strictures of the formal therapy process, or as an additional career source, and how to do that legally and protect your license and all of that. And I have found consistently over the years that therapists and coaches, many of them, do not have a business mindset because they're helping professionals. And because it's very touchy-feely.
yeah.
Not everybody, but a lot of coaches don't have the mindset. They think like there's my coaching and then there's business, and I don't know how I want to deal with that. How would you address that split? And I'm curious if anybody in the group has felt that or feels that conflict, or not, maybe not in this group, but how would you address that?
Yeah. Well, it's something that I'm definitely addressing in my group programs, especially because that's sort of many times that's the hurdle that people need to get over. And me too, like back when I started, I just, I was having fun with my business, doing the work that really meant something to me. But there does become a time where you sort of have to look at, my dog is scratching the carpet. Quit that. She's always testing the audio. It's okay, girl. But there comes a time where you just, like, again, that next level has to do with treating it like a business versus, and I think this is the fun part, is discovering how the business part can be aligned with you. And like how it actually can be fun. And the parts that are no fun, like, let's find someone to do it, let's find someone to collaborate with. So that's the piece. And it's really, to Deb's point, of like having people let go, especially, I think it's even harder for people who maybe are solopreneurs, or maybe they have an assistant. It's harder to let go of things because the business is us, right? Like we're the face. We're the talent. We're the ones providing these transformations. But it's just, and again, but the structure of the business piece can look a lot of different ways. Like there's no one way. And I see so much being taught online, especially, that like, here's the way to do it. And that's just simply not true.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are things, like, I'm not doing my own taxes, and I haven't.
Yeah.
Ever, right? It's too complicated. But I can do basic bookkeeping,
Right.
What I find is, I probably get between 6 and 10 startups a month.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, I don't want to work with them because they're all about the product and not about building a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't. I've done it so many times. And for my own personal business, this is true confessions time. In the past, I would take them because it was revenue to me.
Right.
I was providing value, but if they couldn't adapt it. But now at 65, I'm not working with them anymore.
Yeah.
And, I decided that 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And I'll say to them, let me hook you up with the right person who does startups, who's 20 years younger and has got all this enthusiasm for the product. But, I've tested her and I know she's going to do stuff. And I'm like, when you're at such and such a point, come back to me and then we'll take you to the next level. But we have to understand that in our own business too. And it's much harder to get that middle business because they're like, oh, Deb works with startups. You have this reputation of Deb helps people get in the business. No, Deb helps. And my biggest success in 20 years have been companies that have been, 12 or 15 years old and just stuck.
Right.
So how do you tell that story? I mean, but most people don't want a business. They want to be, it's an ego. It's their vegan hot chocolate mix that they're getting $15 a bag for, and it's not a business model.
Yeah.
It's just never going to be anything.
Actually, that raises a really fun and interesting question because Kim's husband, Chef Steve, they just opened an ice cream shop. Is it in Houston?
It's in Houston.
In Houston. And apparently it's going gangbusters. It's going really well. And when you post descriptions and photos of the really fascinating ice cream flavors that he's created, he's really an artist of food.
Yes.
So how do you take that concept, like Deb is talking about specialty items?
Yeah.
How do you take that and get it out there? Right now you're a brick and mortar store, but what's I guess this doesn't apply to most of the people in this group, but I'm curious. How do you then approach the idea of getting it out there?
Well, so when we started out, he was classically trained by a French chef in 1982. So like before, really, I think Cordon Bleu probably had, but he was like in a French kitchen in a 27-seat restaurant in London for 7 years. Okay. Wow. So he was a savory chef. So when we started the ice cream, which we actually started serving ice cream for money in November of 2020, it is an ice cream shop, but we're building a brand. Like it's the ice cream shops, honestly, this is like not true 100%, but almost true, is the shops are really marketing. Okay. Because what he's really doing is building wholesale accounts with restaurants because he's a chef and he knows everybody in Houston. So, and eventually we're going to be regional, and eventually we're working on visual branding right now, which is a huge piece of the success of it. So that we can go into some specialty markets, some specialty groceries, that sort of thing. And his unique difference has to do with he's not putting junk in the ice cream. Right. How we stumbled upon ice cream was that he and I both have kind of had lifelong weight issues. And we started about 1.5 years ago really wanting to know what was in our food. We wanted whole food, but we also wanted something decadent. Right. Like we didn't want to be vegan. Nothing's wrong with that, but that's not what we actually tried that for a while. It didn't work for us very well. But when we went to find like some decadent ice cream, because we just wanted a little bite at the end of the night, there's just, if you've read descriptions, it's junk. And so he's like, well, I know how to make ice cream. So he just started doing it with 4 ingredients, right? And nothing you can't pronounce. We know the people who bring the eggs. We know the farmer who's the dairy farmer, right? And so that really became, so we're really building a brand and a stand in the industry that we don't have to have, like we can have decadence and not have junk.
So that's a very interesting example to me of how you're in the process of step by step, systematically building a business that is in alignment with something that is emotionally and psychologically very important to you and Steve, which is to have food that you know what's in it and no junk, but also decadent and delicious and fun.
Yeah.
So that to me is an example of what you're talking about getting someone in alignment. You're doing it with your own models.
That's it.
So that's very typical what I get. Okay. But you guys are starting at the correct level locally.
Yes.
With a shop where people could come and physically see you and where people in the food business.
Right.
You're not coming to me and saying, I make this in my kitchen and now I want to go to Whole Foods.
Right. Because it just,
And you don't even know how to ship it frozen.
right. Right. And we
You
know
don't
not to
have,
ship
I
right
mean,
now. Right. Exactly.
right?
And we have some really wise advisors as well.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting because Steve has had his own restaurant twice in his career, but never with like a development team. And and all this has been like, we follow our intuition, and the team came into place, and the money comes into place, and the shop that was already outfitted with ice cream equipment came into place. But we have some really wise advisors from the business side, because I've never built a products business. I deal mostly with professional services, but I don't know anything about products and food. So that's been incredible. But he's telling us what a distinct difference. He said, I see why restaurants and products fail, because our approach with craft creamery is so much different than what he's experienced in the past.
So, Kim, you'll ask Steve to look at the Hirschberg Entrepreneurial Institute, and it's run by the guy who started Stony Brook Yogurt. And they have all kinds of great tools and online, coaching and not coaching, I would say webinars.
Yeah.
And they're all there for him to look at. They just finished an 8 or 9 week series where they brought in people from the major retailers and the major distributors to tell you how to do business with them and how to raise money and all kinds of stuff. So at your leisure, they're an hour and a half talks. Yep. I think it's just it's hirschberginstitute.com, but the whole name is the Hirschberg Entrepreneurial Institute.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's your, 3 years from now, but start educating yourself on what those steps are going to be so that you have the business plan, in 18 months and 36 months, etc.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So good. Yeah. Thank you. It's a
Thank
lot of
you,
fun.
Deb. So pivoting back to the rest of the group, who I don't think anybody else has a product startup in the group today. I think everybody who's here, Mona, unmute yourself, please.
Yes. So I am in the process of creating a certification program for dance educators using my patented mind-body training that will give them the tools so their dancers will not be so injured, and it really does work. I've been, as a therapist, movement therapist, I've been using the techniques of the mind and body that I've worked with for a long time, and they really, really work in helping people who are about to have a knee replacement, and I work with them and change the body patterns so that we create more space in the joint, so the joint can heal and they don't hurt. So that same kind of mind-body engagement, bringing it into the field of dance. And I have a unitard with markings connect with the joints, because I work with the joints in a really very unique way. And so there is a real new problem that's come about as a result of the pandemic, or the funding of the arts, particularly in Florida. So there are a lot of dance educators now who, in the university systems, they're losing their position. And so, and the other thing is the dance educators don't like teaching online. But I found that I could really pivoted and didn't know anything about online, and went online at the beginning of the pandemic, and I found that I really could teach and do some wonderful therapy, and it really, actually, with all the tools that I have, it works a lot better. So I'm trying to take all of this information and put it into a certification program for these dance educators who maybe we'll have to be doing more stuff online, but they will have a training online that they can bring to other their students or to other dance educators.
So do you have a question about that for Kim? That's really
Um,
we're going online. Good for you.
That's amazing.
So, so I am really excited, and I can. The first thing that you said, and you talked about it about the alignment, and I realized the fear, and I realized I had everybody way above me. And when you were just talking a minute at the beginning, I said, "Oh, I have to turn this one upside down," and I did. And so
Yeah.
suddenly, that felt really, really different. So I wanted to say something to you, and then I will have a question. So the vision, visibility, value, you have all these. So all you need, what you do is turn that V upside down and put people on top of a mountain. That's what
I love that.
I love that.
that's what you did for
fantastic.
me, for
Oh,
me,
I
and
love
just
that.
shifting that cheer. So that fear, that notion, so that was really, really exciting, and I thank
That's
you.
fantastic.
So I
Thank
have
you.
become really, in the course of the conversation with Deb and hearing and Leslie's moderating just beautifully, I can appreciate there are a lot of business steps now I need to figure out that go in alignment with a very different kind of thinking that you
Yes.
were talking about. And so that's really intriguing. And it's, I don't quite know where to start, but I'm putting together the certification program, and I have somebody that is wonderful and they're helping me to
Oh,
do
good.
that.
Good.
But the
That was
business-
going to be my question. Do you
Yeah,
have
I
someone
do.
help it? Because
Oh.
there are some people who are so good at that exact
Right.
thing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have the best of the best, and it's a great situation. So, but the other aspect in the context of the business, I can see that I'm not there yet. I need to get that the part of the program all put together, but I can see how important that alignment and carrying it over into the business that you are talking about, that's really important. And so what would you suggest in making that, where I'm saying I have this goal, what would you suggest is that where would I go first to be thinking about that?
Well, this is, I mean, there are a lot of things, but ultimately, none of us have a business unless we have sales, right? Like unless someone's buying what we have. So I think I would put a fair amount of effort into, thinking about the aligned way for you to find your tribe. Like I can hear your passion and what you're talking about. You clearly know what you're talking about. It's really probably a very unique way to do it. So it's really thinking for you about where am I going to find these people that would be the perfect client, that this certification program that you have really solves their problem. And really work in the messaging of that so that you can use it as you're talking to people, face to face, so that you can use it as you're posting online, whatever avenue you think is a good avenue for that. You, like what I always say to people is, in terms of like most of us look towards the sale, and what you really want to back up towards is, really fleshing out your offer and messaging it in a way that it's just a no-brainer for the person who it's perfect for. Like real, like it takes some time to do that. It takes testing messaging. It takes more market research than people typically want to do.
Okay.
But I think that's a really big step that I see, again, most people try to skip. And it's it just makes it harder to sell what you're selling. And then then everything gets hard, then that's no fun. And, then we get out of alignment and that sort of thing.
So what I'm hearing you say is to focus more on engagement.
Engaging and
We're
messaging.
focusing on closing a sale, that the sale
Right.
will happen if the engagement is active and correct and aligned.
Correct. And if it really, and it sounds like it does, like when we have a product that really hits the spot and solves that other person's problem, or like gets them where they want to go, depending on which side of it we're positioning, like that kind of does the selling.
Yeah.
When
Okay.
people have a hard time selling, what really a lot of times is actually the problem is that the offer isn't fleshed out enough. It's not messaged correctly. There's not enough sort of thought put into that, And again, that can all be aligned with you, and even how you present it, and how you, where you market it, where you get visible, that can all be in alignment.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, responses? Joan?
Yes, Kim, I was just wondering if when you're starting to work with someone or people to build their revenue, it seems to me, in my experience, a lot of times it's an entrepreneur that's out there and going to do this, and they're hell bent to go, but they really need to have some other people around them with different skills. Is it easy for them to accept or do you use some assessment instruments to show the person that they might be good at sales, but they're not good at detail, or they're not good at creativity, or whatever, that they need a team? Is it easy?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Yes. Short answer is yes. I think a lot of times when people are entrepreneurs, a lot of us, like, we think we can do it all. Usually people don't jump into the entrepreneurial realm unless they have a pretty, high opinion of what they can do, mostly. But yes, I do use some assessments. I typically, this is just me and my style, but I sort of wait until the person bumps up against, the hurdle or the brick wall to bring in the assessment. Like, I don't like to bring it in as a standard, because maybe they aren't open to it yet.
Right.
But
Right.
when I bring it in as like, okay, here, I'm seeing this problem. How would you feel about doing this particular assessment? They're usually very open to it then, and kind of will take in the information a bit better. But I do use several different ones. It depends. I love the DISC assessment. But more recently, I've pulled human design in, which is an interesting conversation to have with business people. Like, hey, I need your birthday and time and place. And it sounds a bit out there, but my clients have so appreciated the wisdom it brings. Like, you just can't really argue with it, so yeah.
I'll take a 2-second detour and say that the entire basis of the mastery program that we're both in is aligning yourself in your business and in your life according to your human design.
Yes.
And the whole point is that we are all different types, and you cannot become successful in your business as a coach or whatever you want to be if you're not aligned with yourself, as Kim is saying. And so the way I need to conduct my coaching business is completely different than the way Kim needs to conduct hers, because our designs are different. It's astrology times exponentially.
Yeah, times
A lot.
genetics,
And we-
times. Yeah.
We've had someone speak a few years ago in human design to this group, and unfortunately the speaker was somewhat abstruse and garbled. So nobody really has any idea what human design is about, which is possible with human design. It's very complex. Anyway, that's just a little sideline. Just so you know, early I had put vision, visibility, and value in the chat for people when you were saying it.
Yes.
And I put your email, kim@lifeleap.com, so people can reach you. Is there we're not closing yet, but is there some other way you'd like to put in the
Yes.
chat?
I
How people
actually,
can reach you?
I'm proud of myself. I prepped a few links because I have a couple different ways
Good.
people can find me. I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll pop them in the chat. My Facebook group is awesome. If you're a Facebook person, I come in there, I teach every Tuesday, and then occasionally we do these 3-day master classes. It's a great group.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes,
There's so much free material that's awesome.
it's loads. Like,
All
it's
free. She's constantly teaching.
I'm
So if you wanna
constantly
get
teaching.
her
And
Facebook is a great place to be.
yeah, I love it. And then I also have just an email opt-in. If you want to opt into my email list, I send something out to my list once a week. It kind of tells you what's on board in the Facebook group, if I'm running a free event. I also have my Aligned Soul membership, which is I just started this membership in April because I realized I needed a more entry-level place for, like, people were really resonating with the work, but they weren't ready to do one-on-one work. But this is the membership where we talk all about building a business that's aligned with each person and their soul work.
Mhm.
And it's a good time to join that. I have it open right now. It's $144 a month. So in terms of coaching, it's really sort of entry level and lots in there. I have a link for that. And then I also have just a link to a connect call, a 15-minute connect call if people just wanted to ask a question or talk more, in depth afterwards. So I'll put all that into the chat.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be great. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, anyone? Let me put everybody on gallery here so I can see you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? I think this has been really interesting. Oh, good. You got everything in there. I'm going to
Got it all in there.
that.
Usually that's the part I forget is like how to connect.
Okay, great. I think this is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim. And I think the message is very clear. You really need to be in alignment with who you are and then apply systems and analysis and all that, but it all unfolds when it's based on who you really are.
It's so true. Like, again, I think one of the biggest hurdles or mistakes, so to speak, that I see people make is to try to implement strategies, processes, techniques without really being in love with what they're doing and without really sitting with that.
Right.
It just makes it too, none of us are selling, I don't know, belt buckles on Amazon. If we were selling belt buckles on Amazon, this is a totally different conversation. There is a 1, 2, 3, here's exactly how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's our aligned soul work, there are absolutely elements that we have to have. And there's just more to it. Like the energetics really have to line up for it to be really, truly successful.
I really, really want to thank you, Kim. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to meet
Like
you.
to announce our June speaker.
So our June speaker is Suzanne Dameron, and she's going to be talking about and demoing an instrument called Foresight that a lot of people are not familiar with, and I had never heard of it until I did it myself a number of years ago in a group. So she will be doing, depending on the size of our group, she'll do a group process with this. But in a kind of a nutshell, it's about creativity, but not just artistry. It is about problem solving, it's about innovation. It's about how people take in information, how they make decisions, how they plan, how they execute. And I found it really helped me understand some things about myself that were mysterious to me and to other people who knew me. Because my profile, actually, out of 200 people that were there, was me and Mike Klein had the same profile, and one other person.
So was this the one that was done at the Florida Creativity Conference?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. You all should make it your business. I did it too, and it was very interesting. And we had a lot of fun with it, and it can be done in a group. So you all really want to show up for next month. It's good stuff. Foresight.
And it's great for tuning into your clients, their speed, their decision-making style. So it's great for that. It's great for executive coaches who might be working with teams, because it's fabulous for helping teams work together. And just in relationships, I am married to someone who, it turns out, has the opposite style to me, and we have always had the hardest time working collaboratively, making holiday plans, decisions about renovating the house. And this was okay, we get it.
Yeah.
And now we can just chunk up who does what.
Right. Learning the true grid that you're working from, regardless of which system, as long as it's accurate, can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, really.
So that's going to be June, and it sounds great. And we're hoping to arrange something, we know not what yet. This is a teaser, with Kristen, our new member, who does yoga, etc. And maybe we can even arrange something live in person, maybe on the beach. Who knows? And we do want to set something up to start talking with you all about, do we want to go back to meeting at the Bijou Cafe in person?
Yeah.
And when and how and all that. And I think since the CDC guidelines were changed recently, maybe it's a little bit more feasible to imagine that. So we've got some exciting things coming up. We've got someone set up for July also. I'm not going to tell you about it now.
Do you want me
August.
to ask the Bijou when they're opening
Yes,
for
please.
lunch?
That
Because
would be
they're only
great.
open for dinner right now.
Yeah. And they may be having staffing problems like a lot of places around here are, you know, many of
And
the
Monday's not great.
Yeah, many of the places around here are cutting back their hours because they
So
can't.
what if he said, we're gonna open Friday and Saturday at lunch?
Let's have that
We
discussion.
move days?
Let's wait, maybe. Let's wait and see how everything evolves. In the meantime, Kim, I can't thank you enough. Really appreciate you spending your time with us. Her contact information is in the chat if anybody wants to reach out. And thank you all. Hope to see you next month.
Thank you all so much.
Take
Appreciate
care,
it.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.